didn't you see the seas, how they move, and see what is there significant for them to think, oh, this could not really move without God's power, because they see, all I see, oh, there's air, there is wind, so this is how it's moving. How can someone who does not believe in God, can this actually we can bring this, use this as a proof?
That's a great question. Does anyone want to offer any
Yeah,
answer to that? Go ahead.
yeah. Peace be upon you guys. Um, well, I mean, back then they don't know why there's wind. They just know that there's this, force that blows in the air, like that they can't see, that they call wind. And when this is present, they can use it for sales. But back then they had no idea what would even cause it. But for that time, to me, that's a sign, that's a miracle. Even now, we don't control the wind, right? We can't guarantee there will be wind. We may know the mechanisms of why that happens, like hot streams, cold streams, and things like that. The Earth's rotation that'll cause wind, but we can't control the wind, right? The same way we can't control if it rains. I mean, some conspiracy theorists might beg to differ, but you, you still can't. We still can't control Mother Nature, like quote unquote Mother Nature, right? We can't control these forces. So to me, that's a sign of a miracle of its own.
Brother Ilham, since you brought the controlling the wind, I just saw yesterday how, or I just got to know that the Gulf people, especially in UAE, they have a mechanism to create like winds and rain, and that is something new. But the thing is, they cannot control how much rain. So sometimes when they do trigger the rain in the country to actually encourage the plants and the trees, or for political reason to stop riots and prevent strikes and riots. So they create a storm and rain, and that the amount of rain could cause flood that they did not anticipate. So they still can do something, but they're not as powerful as God. Praise God.
Yeah, no, I look at it the same way as like you take medicine, right? So we learn about the mechanisms of action in the body, and how different systems like interact and function with each other, and what chemicals and molecules do what in the body. And then we take medicine, but it's no guarantee that that medicine will have that effect on that body, because there's some people that they take the medicine, it does nothing for them, right? And for some people it does. So we can try, but we still don't have true control over it. So I agree with that.
These aspects of the world where God says, just look at this. These are proofs for people who think or who reason, who have knowledge. Often, we look at 7th century Arabia, they don't have that much knowledge on these matters, and their ignorance itself was enough for them to think, okay, hey, this is proof from God. But as they become more knowledgeable on these subjects, they're able to look deeper into what these things are. Like you look at a cell, biology, genetics, space, astronomy, all these things. You eventually reach a point where, like, hey, I figured out most of this stuff, but now I still can't explain why it does this. Right? Like, the most rational answer ends up being there must have been a designer behind it. Right? So it's very interesting. When you're ignorant, it still serves as proof, but when you become knowledgeable, the proof only increases.
One more thing about the whole ships thing. Actually, the next verse says, when violent waves surround them, they implore God, sincerely devoting their prayers to Him alone. But as soon as He saves them to the shore, some of them revert. I think that the previous verse that says, "Do you not see that the ships roam the sea, carrying God's provisions to show you some of His proofs," is also telling the people, listen, if God wanted, He could have violent winds and storms in the sea, so you would never be able to have those provisions that come from the sea. And by the way, Mecca is quite close to the Red Sea, and it was on a trade route. And they have ports in Jeddah, in a city that's very close to Mecca. So I don't think it was. It's unreasonable to assume that many of them actually went for fishing or went on ships to do trade. They were merchants, so they would know. And if it wasn't for the ships, they would have much less provisions because there's not going to be much trade going through. So that's why I believe it's talking about some of the God's proof that people have to be appreciative of.
Also,
There's
I believe oh god.
there is also the verse that says we don't know what's in the womb. In the past, that was a miracle, and we said, yeah, that's really a proof that Quran is word of God. But now that we know what's in the womb, so where does this verse stand?
Well, he doesn't say we don't know what's in the womb.
What does? Okay,
I'll read it to you again. With God is the knowledge regarding the hour. He, God, is the one who sends down the rain, and he knows the contents of the womb. No soul knows what will happen to it tomorrow, and no one knows in which land he or she will die. God is omniscient, cognizant. So he tells us the two details that you and I will not know is what will happen to us tomorrow, and you and I will not know when we will die.
Okay, so what's the point of bringing the womb?
Well, because he mentions two details that that humanity ends up being able to figure out. So humans are able to now predict the weather, and they're now also able to determine the gender of the child before birth. Right. So those are two details. And if you look at it, there's one more detail before that. He mentions it, the end of the world, the hour. That is also a third detail that we can figure out. He does not say no one will know when the hour happens.
So it will stop becoming a miracle or something like it's just God's thing, right?
It's not a miracle.
So it was not. So he's not. It's not. He's not saying it as a miracle, but he's. What's interesting is back then nobody could tell when rain was happening or what the contents of the womb are. But in this verse, he does not say no soul will be able to know these two details. So it's very interesting. Time passed by, and now the souls are able to know these two details, but they're still not able to know the two details he said no soul will ever figure out. So that this itself is, in my opinion, miraculous. Yeah, like Muhammad could not have figured out that in the future we would be able to tell our kids from inside the womb. Like Muhammad would not have known this fact.
It's
He also,
funny.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, finish, please.
I was gonna say he also did not know that in the future we would be able to tell when rain was coming. Muhammad could not have had that knowledge. Yet in this verse, it clearly points out that the two facts that we're not able to determine are when we're going to die and what's going to happen to us tomorrow.
It's funny because I saw an atheist argue against this point a while ago who was saying that, look, God is saying he's the only one who knows what's in the womb and when the rain comes, but now with the technology that we have, we know what's in the womb. Funny thing is, God never says that he will be the only one who will ever know the contents of the womb. He says he knows it. He still knows it whether you also know it or not. So the second part of the verse,
his word choice is very specific and exact.
That's why I say God is the best schemer.
He's a very good schemer.
He writes the verses in a way that he knows, okay, in the future they're gonna figure it out, but I'm still gonna tell them that I know what's in the womb. You don't know now, but you're gonna figure it out in the future. And in the future they're gonna say, oh look, we know it now. So God is wrong in here. But God never made the claim he will be the only one to ever know of the womb, contents of the womb. So that's a very miraculous thing. Praise God.
I guess I'm still programmed in the Sunni way because we used to say, oh, this is actually something that's before we started the ultrasound and the solar and all this thing. Before we started knowing, I'm programmed that this is one of the miracles that God has. Nobody can tell. That's in the past. So this is why I think I assumed it is a miracle, because that's one of the things we get taught, that it's one of the miracles. But there is still a small window here for his miraculous knowledge, which is the before the determination of the gender. No one is able to tell except God, right?
Actually, I think we can
If I can,
technically people. Yeah, go ahead.
With blood tests, we can know that.
yeah,
Brother, you're cutting off or I'm cutting off? I don't know which one.
He's
He's
cutting
cutting
off.
off. We can't hear you, Ilham.
Yeah, there's a
right?
blood test, then you
Like,
can know that. Yeah.
So just so people know, these days people can actually separate the sperm cells by gender and give you a fertilized egg with with the desired gender that you're looking for. So even before you get impregnated with the egg, they can.
Is it 100% accurate, or is
Yeah, I mean it's not it's like, hey, I'm looking in front of you, like I see you. You know, they're using a telescope to be able to confirm these details. It's not a secret.
Mm.
But the miraculous nature of this. Go ahead. Does someone
And the
want to speak?
gender determination there as
can you
well.
hear me now?
You can do a blood test of the mother, and then they can know what's the gender of the baby before ultrasound or anything, and that's 100% accurate.
Brother,
Can
we can hear you now.
you can hear me now? Okay, God willing, my reception stays good.
Mitochondria.
There are still many things that only God knows. Like, for example, the quality of the soul, right? What kind of child you will have, their temperament, etc., etc. Maybe like things like autism, because I'm not aware of any like blood work or test that will tell you, hey, yeah, your kid's gonna come out autistic and how much and things like this. So there are still many other factors that tests will not show. And what's funny is that I've even heard of stories where doctors have said, like, oh, like you should abort your baby because it's going to come out sickly or it's going to come out malnourished or unhealthy. And then the parents decided not to, and the baby came out perfectly healthy, perfectly fine, maybe a little bit skinny at birth or whatever, but um, after several months, like the kid lived the normal, healthy life. Its cognitive function was perfectly fine and normal, right?
That's what
So,
they make it. It's called a hypocritical oath.
sorry?
That's why doctors make what is called a hypocritical oath or something of that nature. As a father of 4 kids, I definitely agree with you with many things that we were told. And then she actually had 4 kids instead of just the first one, which unfortunately resulted in a uterine rupture. She was told she couldn't
Mm,
have another kid, and here we are 4 kids later. So,
praise
yeah.
God. If no one has any comments anymore about that verse, there's additional things that I really love about that verse. Specifically, the part where it says, no soul knows what will happen to it tomorrow. And the reason I love this verse is if you're ever having a bad day, or maybe you're trying to work towards something in life and it feels like that goal is never coming, and you can relate this to like maybe a job you're trying to get or an education you're trying to finish or trying to get married or trying to have kids or trying to buy a house or whatever it is, right? We've all gone through something where we're waiting for something to happen or we're trying to work towards making that happen, and it seems to like just take forever, or you're not, or you kind of start to maybe even despair, like, man, I don't know, is this ever gonna happen for me, right? And this is a beautiful verse because it's like, hey, it may happen tomorrow. You have no idea. So to me, this has always helped me become or stay hopeful and trusting in God, right? That tomorrow may be a better day, God willing, right? So just you hang in there and you wait to see what present or gift God has in store for you tomorrow. You never know. You may wake up tomorrow and bump into somebody and they'll give you like $1 million. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like the job you were looking for. You could be. You have no idea what will happen tomorrow. Anything can happen tomorrow, right? And if we think back to the stories of the messengers, I mean, Joseph was in jail. It's not as if he had a date on his calendar saying, "Hey, you'll be released at this day with a job and this and that." You have no idea, right? And but not only, but then lo and behold, one day, the prison guard, ding, 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 you have a visitor. Who is it? It's your buddy from the jail saying, "Hey, the king has some questions about his dreams," right? Or Moses, one day he's a fugitive, and then the next day he gets married with a job in a home. You have no idea what's going to happen tomorrow.
Peace.
Peace.
Yeah, you don't know. You don't know where you're gonna die and what you're gonna earn the next day. Yeah, that's. Yeah. Like it encourages you to stay in the present. Similar to how even Buddhists say, the past is just that. The past, the future, it's not even here yet. All you have is now. It's the greatest gift, which is why some people even call it the present. Boom.
Yeah, praise God. I know that sometimes the human being often or people, we often get gloomy about the future because we don't know, right? Like that's the thing is the reason people are sometimes afraid of the future is because they don't know what's going to happen or if something is going to happen. But with keeping this in mind and keeping in mind God's promises and all the precedents that have been set before us through all the messengers, we know as submitters, you can confidently say the future is bright. You can be hopeful about the future. You can look forward to the future, God willing, as long as you uphold your end of the covenant, as long as you do everything that is required of you and that is good for you, and that will likely be the foundational blocks for the future. So for submitters, believers in God alone, followers of the Quran, the future is always positive. It's always good.
Makes me think of the Pascal's wage.
Does somebody have a hot mic? Victory, your mic is unmuted. Do you have a comment, sir?
Peace be upon you. Verse 25. Why does God say, "Yet most of them do not know"?
I have a comment on that. And I think it kind of relates back to verse 22. It says, I was listening to, those who submitted completely to God while leading a righteous life have gotten hold of the strongest bond. So it's like, okay, if I tell you, like, imagine you're sitting here and you're being anxious about the future. Oh no, I mean, this may not happen, and like you're stricken with anxiety, right? You're worrying, you're stressed, you're losing sleep, and I say, "Hey, who controls everything in the heavens and the earth?" And you say, "Well, God does." Okay, so then why are you anxious? Why are you fearful? Why are you stressed? Because if you truly knew, right? If you truly, deep in your heart, you had no doubt and you truly knew that God was controlling everything, then what's the reason to stress? So the way I see it, when people are saying like, "Oh yeah, God this, God that, God created this," yeah, for sure there's God, but the way they behave, the way they live their lives, it's not indicative of that. They don't truly know God, right? they parrot things and they say the right words and sentences, but they don't truly know who God is. Otherwise, they wouldn't be doing that or responding like that. Like their behaviors and actions would be different. That's how I understand it.
Fools to dread as mortals, but to act as if you are immortal.
Yeah,
So
that's
it's
right.
basically lip service. They don't. They say God, but they don't really know, like they're not actually knowing it. It's just in passing kind of thing.
Yeah, you know that verse that talks about like it is not you who threw and you threw, God is the one who threw, and then the
8:7.
footnote says, yeah, the footnote says belief in God necessitates belief in His qualities. You can't believe in God if you don't know His qualities, right? And this is what I think is if you object, like Rashad in his sermon, right? Not to object. If you object, then you're saying I don't. Whether you know it or not, right? You're indirectly saying I don't trust what God is doing. I don't like what He's doing, or I disagree. But if you believe in His quality and you know, truly know that God is running everything, when you have no doubt, then you're not going to object.
Actually, I was one of those people who used to, I know that I know and I believe in God, but I used to fear the future, fear of things that it could happen. Until submission, it changed me. But the thing is not because I didn't know God or I didn't believe God. I did, but I was afraid of what God has for me in the future. It's not about not believing God. It's about accepting and submitting to what God has planned for you. And that was kind of the difference between me now and me before, which is right now I'm accepting before knowing what is hidden for me. I'm accepting what is going to happen. It's God's plan. I have to accept it and trust that God is doing what's best for me. And even if it's hurting, I will have to trust that this is what's best for me, and I have to believe if God wants it this way, so I have to submit to it and accept it. And that was the difference between me now and me then in the past. So knowing God and believing it does not make a difference until you actually accept His plans willingly.
Have you guys ever looked at the 12 steps for Alcoholics Anonymous? Yeah, I just posted one of their pages. It says the very first step: we admit we were powerless over alcohol, and that our lives had become unmanageable. Like, so basically, they're saying, "Hey, we have no power. We admit that." Right? This sounds similar to submission to God. We submit to God. We admit that we have no power over anything. That God holds all the power over us. Right? And I find this very interesting that this is their program for like coping with the problem of alcohol. Like, because the very first step is saying that they themselves don't hold any power. And then look at the second step. The second step says, come to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Isn't that just saying to believe in God and His ability to heal you?
Bro, I thought you made this list or something, bro. Like with
Yeah,
submission.
here I copy pasted it from right here. Look at this.
They mentioned God for Alcohol Anonymous.
This is Alcohol Anonymous.
Yes,
It's all stuff. This is right. I just copy pasted it right now.
yeah, they do. They that's been the foundation of Alcohol Anonymous.
Must It must have
For
been
as
made
far
by
back
Christians or
as it,
something.
probably, but they've actually, when I was working at a counseling center for drug rehabilitation, I went through a program where it's called Smart Recovery, and they totally stripped God out of it. They wanted it all scientific based with no God in it. So like if I had have held meetings for the community, I wouldn't have been able to talk about God. It all had to be scientific based.
It's unfortunate. I bet you Alcohol Anonymous did better back then than it does now.
Well, like I'm pretty sure a lot of these anonymous groups they yield to a higher power. They appeal.
Mm.
It is these programs that end up demonstrating success. Which
I believe
thing. Go ahead.
I believe the ones, yeah, like if you're an Alcohol Anonymous, if you're of the ones that are yielding to a higher power, i.e., God, your chances of success are probably higher than the next person, like who's strips God out of it, without a doubt.
Even if you are, because a lot of them actually do worship Jesus, but you know, you will see even amongst the idol worshipers that they're more like, you know, they do behave more righteously than, you know, one that doesn't believe at all, you know, because they, you know, they do incorporate some kind of moral standard into their life. I mean, it's off, we know, but it shows that answering to a higher power and believing in God does, even when you're not doing you're idol worshiping, you're still doing better than the disbelievers who think that they're in absolute control.
Mm.
The idol worshippers, some of them delve into, you know, God alone theology, God alone praise, right? It's not like, oh, hey, we're just praising Mary 24/7, right? So even in their churches, their synagogues, even the masjid, sometimes like true statements end up being said and absorbed by the people, and some of them end up putting it into practice, and they benefit from these ideas. Right. It's meant to, yeah, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to piggyback on that. I used to think like, oh yeah, church is a terrible place, worshiping idols. But then I came across that verse where it says, if it were not that God supported some people over others, churches, synagogues, masjids, temples, places of worship would have been destroyed. That means God wants these places to be standing. He wants them to be around, even if they're is love and the small soul is hate. And then he gives the example of like people going to bars and stuff and how they're all miserable and angry and fighting and shooting and stabbing and killing. And then churches is even if they're worshiping, you know, like idols, but still the name of God is commemorated there, right? So I just wanted to piggyback on that.
It's true. Like you don't see, you know, slovenly bar fights happening in a church, even though it has shirk in it. Right. The whole point is that, you know, even though they have idol worship there, with the name of God being commemorated there, some concepts of God alone are being presented there, you end up having some righteous individuals walking out. Right? This is like chapter 7, verse 159. Among the followers of Moses, so the Jews, right? Among the followers of Moses, there are those who guide in accordance with the truth, and the truth renders them righteous. Right, so there are, even though these places we don't go pray in them, they end up serving as a stage closer to God than like pure atheism.
Message to Covenant, one of his audios mentioned that something that out of those places there are individuals who make it. So those places serve a purpose.
Did
Yeah, just
anyone notice?
to
Okay.
piggyback on that, right? Like, I don't know if anybody here is a submitter And our journey to submission started with a submitter conversation, right? Like we all came from various churches, backgrounds, stuff like that. And we were all magnetized towards like God, right? It was only through that search that we recognized it was false and that we continued on. But it did start in one of these houses of worship. Like, I think that's a thing to note as well, right? This is kind of like the starter pack of submission is often in these idolatrous places. Peace.
Brother Justin is absolutely right. I mean, a lot of the people, let's say Muhammad was speaking with, were people that were already believing they were monotheists, right? But in God, the Quran was just trying to correct their misunderstandings and bad comprehensions, right? And just the stages that they're at are just they're closer to monotheism than just pure disbelief. But they've not escaped the fatal problem yet. Did anyone notice
We
verse?
rarely get those atheists. We rarely get those atheists converting to submission. Mostly traditionals and Christians.
That's tough. I mean, like for a person to just go out of their way to disbelieve in God, the Quran sort of indicates such individuals don't really ever come back to believing. That the God's guidance is meant for those who already have that sort of seed of belief in there. Right? Trying to convince a disbeliever is like God says. Which verse was he? There's a verse he says, like I guess 60:13 maybe is one of them. Let me see if I can find it.
This is Surah Baqarah as well, right? It's in a Surah. So whether you warn them or don't warn them really doesn't make a difference.
Yeah, here, I think I'll put both of them. As for those who disbelieve, it is the same for them whether you warn them or not warn them. They cannot believe. God seals their minds and their hearing, and their eyes are veiled. They have incurred severe retribution. Right, so the God is indicating that people who are in that state, they're already locked up, and He's thrown away the key, kind of deal. Right. Of course, you and I, as far as we're concerned, we got to treat every single person as a potential submitter. But when we perceive these traits in individuals, it's sort of a sign from God to you don't have to try as hard with them. Right, chapter 60, verse 13. Oh, you who believe, do not befriend people with whom God is angry and who are hopelessly stuck in disbelief. They are just as hopeless as the disbelievers who are already in the graves. I wanted to mention something else about the verses. Verse 31 to verse 32. Do you guys notice the ending adjectives? Indeed, those who should be, these should be sufficient proofs for everyone who is steadfast, appreciative. And then the next verse says, none discards our revelations except those who are betrayers, unappreciative. Do you believe steadfast and betrayer are being sort of portrayed as opposite adjectives here? Honest question. I don't think there's I don't have a right or wrong answer to this one.
Sorry, which verse, brother?
Verse 31 to verse 32. Read the ending. Yeah, I'm gonna put the verses again for everyone. God willing. All right, it is Indeed, these should be sufficient proofs for everyone who is steadfast, appreciative. And none discards our revelations except those who are betrayers, unappreciative. Is God juxtaposing, steadfastness and betrayal sort of next to each other, sort of saying these are
Well,
antonyms?
steadfast is, you have the direction you're going and you stick the course, even if you get blown this way, that way, or you fall down, but you don't turn back, right? Betrayal is turning your back.
So it is sort of like mirroring
I
each
can see
other.
the contrast.
Yeah. Okay. I'm glad it's not just me.
Are we saying steadfast is the opposite of betrayal?
Praise God.
I think loyalty would be
I
that
think
one, but
yeah, loyalty would be the opposite of betrayal. Because I say steadfastness is a little bit more like it's like staying strong, right? Like there's the prayer, "Our Lord, grant us steadfastness, steady our foothold, support us against the disbelieving people." It's like perseverance, right? Like purposeful perseverance.
but that's kind of what loyalty is, right? It is something that is steadfast. Like it has to be steadfast, otherwise it's not loyalty, right? Like it's
Yeah, sure. I mean, it has the yeah, they have the quality of it, sure. Yeah.
mhm. I don't like yeah, like not necessarily the
Mhm.
exact opposites of each other, like antonyms, but I do see the stark contrast, like the difference between one who's as the
Yeah, I can
verses
get on board
were
with the
stated.
contrast. Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah, like someone who's steadfast is not a betrayer, and someone who is
that's right.
steadfast does, is loyalty. So it's like, like I would say like probably, since God mentions righteousness and steadfast a lot, like side by side with one another and as like top tier characteristics, like steadfastness is a trait of the righteous, and then there are like loyalty is a trait of the steadfast kind of a deal. Like they're kind of umbrella um, descriptors.
Mm.
So I posted 2 verses. Do you guys think there's any correlation between chapter 31, verse 28, and chapter 3, verse 59? So I'll read the verses out. 31:28 is how they would demonstrate. The creation and resurrection of all of you is the same as that of one person. God is hearer, seer. And then 3:59, the example of Jesus, as far as God is concerned, is the same as that of Adam. He created him from dust and said to him, "Be," and he was. Is there any correlation, or are these just completely 2 separate ideas being explained in 2 different verses?
Are we doing the open portion of discussion now?
31:28 is one of our other verses that we went through.
No. I was saying, like, are we doing the open portion of the Quran study? The open.
No, not at all. I have a question about
Amazing.
31:28, and I just wasn't sure how to understand it in relation to
Oh, that's
chapter.
true. That's one of the verses we read. Yeah.
Yeah.
I could buy in the correlation being there. I think what God is saying about Adam and Jesus is a more specific version of the resurrection of one of you is the same as all of you. Kind of like how I don't know, at least I've always thought of that. The resurrection of one of you is the same, or all of you is the same as one of you. I've always thought of that as like a computer program. You run something through a function, and whether you run the function once or a million times, it's the same. The function's going to do is capable of doing its purpose.
Could it also mean, and this is a thought experiment more so than like asserting anything, but like when God creates something, it's repeatable, it reproduces, and like its lineage is already predetermined. So when God says the creation of mankind is as created one being, that creation of the being is already inherent with the creation of mankind. Do you understand what I'm saying? It makes sense in my head.
Is it like the Abraham is the father of the nations?
Yeah. Right, like Abraham was made to be the father of nations beforehand, right? So like when you make Adam, the lineage of Adam to the end is already implicit with the creation of Adam.
That's very interesting. I don't dislike that interpretation at all. That's a very interesting way of
Yeah,
looking at it.
that's not bad. Yeah,
Because
I mean,
like
it's kind of in
Adam
line. Yeah.
reproduces, right? Like that reproduction, that lineage is inherent within the creation of that being, right?
So as soon as he created Adam or Adam and Eve or whichever, he had thereby created all of us at that time.
Yes.
Interesting.
So and this goes to show, right? Like Jesus was like no different than Adam, because like it was just bound to happen, right? Like you could even hawk it up like scientifically, it was an anomaly, right? Like this was like some time of mutation or something. It was just bound to happen because God instituted that in the creation of Adam to begin with.
Wouldn't Jesus and Adam be like, effectively the more explicit example is, fatherless and things like this? as we know it anymore.
I wonder if God names Adam and Jesus together simply as a counter argument against Christians, simply because they say, oh, hey, well, Jesus had no father, thus God was his father. I'm like, oh, okay, well, then Adam was also Jesus.
Yeah, well,
was also God's
yeah,
son.
that I definitely think is true. Yeah. I definitely think that is I mean, I
Possible.
think you're absolutely right that that's a big component of that, right? Like, so. Uh, and I think there's a lot of interesting pairings between Adam and Jesus. They're like mentions were like the same or something. I forget. Like there was I forget what all they were, but they were intrinsically linked together in the Quran with like numbers of mentions and things like this too. So,
Yeah, they mentioned
but
an
I can't
equal
remember
number of
precisely what
times.
that was.
They
Yeah, there it is.
mentioned an equal number of times. I had a comment on verse 22. This is another like really great verse for like reflection. It says, "Those who submit completely to God while leading a righteous life." Interesting that it says while leading a righteous life, right? You still have to be a righteous person. Have gotten hold of the strongest bond, for God is in full control of all things. To me, this is those things where it's like, okay, I just need to submit myself to God, lead a righteous life, do my contact prayers, etc., etc. Everything else, it doesn't matter. Nothing else matters. I'm not saying like don't go to work or whatever and don't, you know what I mean? But as far as the outcome goes, it doesn't matter. Because what if you submit yourself to God and lead a righteous life, whatever outcome occurs, that was the best possible thing that could have happened for you. And that's the way we got to look at it, right? This way we don't fear about what may or may not happen. We don't care about what does or doesn't happen. Whatever happens, we're appreciative, we trust in God, and we look for the good, the benefit, or the reasons why God had this occur. And the reason is always for our benefit, to grow our soul, to learn a lesson, to purify ourselves. And I believe this is the strongest bond, because now your life is not chaotic. Your life is not a roller coaster. Your life is not ups and downs, right? Instead, your life is a lot more stable, and it's going towards a specific trajectory, which is, God willing, linear, right? Or even better, exponential. These are very important verses.
No fear, no grief.
Oh, go ahead, brother.
It's just the verse I think of based on what he was sharing. Just shall not fear nor grieve. So again, you're in that state of Surat the Mustaqim, what the Buddhists call nirvana. It's a state beyond opposite extremes. You're not so worried about the past, and yet you're not so, like an extreme prepper or something for the future. At the same time, you just say you're not like so extreme, like don't go to work. You know what the Quran actually says to go to work for midday, but that's another conversation, to earn Allah's bounties and stuff like that. But yeah, just don't be so extreme. Just be right there, be present, put it in Allah's hand, and all is well.
Excellent comment, brother. Triple A, did you want to say something?
So you know how we noticed the steadfast betrayal thing down there. I see another sort of contrast here between 22 and 23. The 22 talks about the good people, essentially the believers, and 22 talks about the disbelievers. But look at how look at the last sentence in each verse. For God is in full control of all things, And the other one, on the other side, God is fully aware of the innermost thoughts. Right? So God is not giving people bad innermost thoughts. Right? God is running a show, and he's fully control of everything. But God did not make the devil disbelieve. He did not make the devil jealous. The devil was jealous on his own. Right? So I like how these two verses encompass everything about God. God is in fully control of all things, and God is fully aware of the innermost thoughts, the hidden things inside each person's soul. Right? And for the believers, he's managing all their affairs and everything's out in the open for them. But for the disbelievers, sometimes their crimes are hidden deep inside, and God is saying, I'm aware of them. Right? And he says, do not be saddened about that. Right? Do not be saddened over their disbelief, because it is they who chose it, and God is aware of the problems within them. He says, it's funny, chapter 8, verse 23. So it's funny how both these verses are verse 23. He says, had God known of any good in them, had God known of any good in their innermost thoughts, for example, he would have made them hearers. Even if he made them hearers, they still would turn away in aversion. So it's very interesting. Like, this is why he says, do not be saddened by their disbelief. Right? If there was any good in them, then God would guide them to believing.
So are you saying that guidance depends on their his decision to guide a person? It depends on their knowing if they are good souls or bad souls. I just don't. How can we actually, for someone who starts for the first time reading the Quran and became a submitter, how can we justify he's in control of everything, yet it's you get misguided by Satan? And I don't know how we fit all this together.
All of us are subject to the devil's misguidance. Every single one of us. Right?
Yeah, but God is, like, for example, God is control in everything, yet he could have guided Satan if he wanted, right?
Right, but so Satan himself, he has to choose to be guided. Chapter 13, verse 11. Fifths of angels take turns staying with each one of you. They are in front of you and behind you. They stay with you and guard you in accordance with God's commands. Thus, God does not change the condition of any people unless they themselves make the decision to change. If God wills any hardship for any people, no force can stop it, for they have none beside him as Lord and Master. Right? So, the devil, he himself has to want to change. If he does
God
not,
okay, let's just say, if
Sister,
God has the control, if he has the control, sorry, but I
go
wanted
for it.
to,
Go for it.
yeah. So someone will argue, but God can control that too. He can actually control the decision a person wants to change or not.
that would go against free will.
So sister,
God
knew all of this was going to happen beforehand. God knew who was going to be condemned to hell before it was created, right? This is for us to bear witness as to why we get that judgment.
Right. Yeah.
Right? So those who are led astray because their soul was a rejecting soul. Those who accept God are accepting souls, right? So the judgment is essentially already carried out. It's just we're bearing witness as to why. This illusion is here for us to see what would happen if our own inhibitions took control, right? And God leads it accordingly. But God already knows who's righteous and who's not. It's for us to bear witness as to why. Does that make sense?
I know this, Brother Justin, but the thing is, someone will ask, okay, he knows, but he also can change. He can change the person. He controls that.
That would violate free will. So, like, even you right now, you've become a better person, not because God went into your soul and changed you. God taught you, granted you wisdom that you accepted and became a better person. Right?
Because there's the reward.
Free will has
They fed the silver spoon without putting merit and to fixing your own problems. So he gives us the opportunity of, sovereignty and accountability and personal responsibility. Or in that case, then the reward is pointless. You wouldn't get a reward if I did the work for you.
Yeah, if he programmed you to be a good person, then there's no point in heaven and hell. He could just program everyone to be a good person, and everyone will be like a robot, a good person.
So what God does is just he set the stage, no, and controlling the stage, but the roles we have to play our own roles through our own will. That's what it is.
You are going through the play that he's written out for you.
Yeah.
Right. You're acting with your own will. Right. But
Yeah.
he's already written it out for you, the path that you're going to
Yeah.
walk.
Okay.
Right. You just got to go and walk it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Or
Triple A,
this is how
Mary.
to make your walk peaceful, not in the sense of start with your left foot, but don't be a doctor. Like, no. More be a peaceful doctor, and don't I don't know, harvest people's kidneys for $50,000 in Thailand. If that makes sense, just be a good person, not do this, but how you do it.
May I say something here, please? I think I understand what our sister's trying to say. Look, God says in the Quran that He creates the human being and wants to reveal Satan's inner intention that God's aware of, right? So He creates the human being and says, "I create this human being, I breathe the soul into him, and then you should fall prostrate." And Satan doesn't, and everyone else does, right? One of the main points about understanding worshiping God is not because he forces you, right? He doesn't want minions. God created people with their own volition to know him, to worship him, right? And that is the freedom of will that everyone present to God has, and he is giving it to them. And that becomes a critical issue as to why we followed Satan as well. But there's a catch in here. And then in 739, what does God say? The ancestral group will say to the later group, "Since you had an advantage over us, test the retribution for yourselves." You see, the situation changes in here. We did the same thing, we were there. God gave us a gift of redemption. This life is a gift for us to redo that trait that we had inside us. Arrogance, right? It's 740 as God says, "Surely those who reject our revelations and are too arrogant to uphold them, the gates of the sky will never open for them." So what do we see in here? When we go back again, right? The very same thing that we came here to do, we didn't do. But we go to God and say, "Look, send us back again and we'll be righteous." So it is that character that God is talking to. And God says about Abraham, we made him because we knew him from before. Right? So the Abraham and the us are the same. Right? This is what God is talking about. So he forgives us from what we did, stood up against him. He says, "Okay, I'll give you another chance to see if you can redo what your volition did. Here, I'll give you a chance." It's an open book, right? It's open source. You can change it if you want. So this is the freedom. This is what God gave us to be able to worship him, because once we get back to him, we can't blame him. What did Satan do? He says, Your Majesty, since you chose to send me astray, he is saying to God, God chose him to go astray, Satan. Did God do that? Right? And there is an aspect when you start looking at ourselves, there are two aspects with us. And there is a bad aspect to us, and there's a good aspect to us. 3179, God says, do not leave the believers like you the way you are. I distinguish between the good and the bad. These are believers, between the bad believer and a good believer. So when you start looking, when we meditate to ourselves, what, as a believer, what makes me a bad believer and what makes me a good believer? These are the two aspects that exist within us. And there is a mythology in Sufism that says, this guy goes to the Sufi master and says, look, I can see people are good, but at the same time, sometimes they're bad. How does that happen? And he says there are two wolves within us, a good one and a bad one. And the kid says, look, then which one wins? He says it's the one that you feed. The one that you feed wins. This is the choice. This is the real choice. But without the good, we wouldn't have been able to distinguish the bad. As Brother Shibula say, or then you had robots. You had AI going in there. They're just some accumulated information. So when you start looking at the way God constructed the existence, is not to force, is not to let. God says, if I wanted to give them their guidance, I could have given them their guidance. Why didn't I? Then what happens? Then you got to blame God for everything, right? So when we stand before him, we cannot blame God, nor can we blame Satan. The key factor is ourselves. In the verses that we read today, I just wanted to, didn't read that. I wanted to sort of basically bring to the verse verse when they are told, verse 19,
While you look that verse up, does anybody else have a comment?
well, if not, can I continue, please, Brother Ilham? 31:16. Oh, my son, know that even something as tiny as a mustard seed deep inside the rock, be it in the heavens or the earth, God will bring it. God is sublime, cognizant. Well, it's not about mustard seed, is it, really? What that verse is saying, that he is everywhere. He is everywhere. He is aware. But he doesn't interfere with anything. Everything goes according to his law. The mustard seed he made, obviously. He created it. It's what we don't know. And the gift that he gives comes with his scriptures, all of them. The Quran being the supreme, right? So the handbook goes with it. What is the handbook saying? That he's everywhere. But you have to have a volition to worship him and not worship him. That's the responsibility that we've chosen, given our past, right? And when you look at this, God is everywhere. Look, he says that he resurrects us. But when you look at ourselves, every year, we replace all our atoms within a year. It's a calculated fact. because we breathe, we eat, right? The atoms in our body changes, gets replaced. But look at us. We become basically a pattern that exists within these atoms that come and go. The carbon dioxide in our system was created at the first bang. The calcium, the iron, these are supernovae, stars that go supernovae. And it scattered these elements into the universe. And God created us from these. We are a stardust. But as the year changes, our atoms change, every single one of them. Our personality change. Our memories retain. This pattern remains. And this is the pattern that exists superimposed on our existence. This is what God created, regardless of the body that you go in. So when you start looking at the complexity, the beauty, and the love and affection that God has created us with, the constancy, this is what God says. And the verse that Brother AAA read, right? I do not change anyone's condition unless they want to. So when God says, if whatever you do is according to my will, you leave a tree stand on its trunk or chop it down, it's in accordance to my will. What does that mean? That's an empowerment of your free will and volition. God has empowered it to do. Right? So he's given you all that power. Right? Even at the quantum level, because everyone has a quantum signature. It is you, my friend, that is on the seat. The guidance, it is our choice. The change, it is our choice. The power comes from God. So no one stands before God can blame him or anybody else. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I got a question. So 31, 29, and 30, right? Says, do you not realize that God merges the night into the day, merges the day into the night? He has commanded the sun and the moon in your service, each running in its orbit for a specific lifespan, and that God is fully cognizant of everything you do. The following verse says, this proves that God is the truth. Well, any idol they set up beside him is falsehood, and that God is most high, most great. So here's my question to you guys. Let's say you're talking to somebody and then you go, okay, well, they have an idol and then you have God. And you're trying to convince them that their idol is like not true. It's like it's a fake idol. If you say these things, God merges the day into the night and the sun and the moon are in your service, etc. Couldn't they just say, yeah, my idol does that too. My idol does that actually. No, my idol does that. So how would this prove to somebody that their idol is falsehood? You know what I mean? Couldn't they just say, my idol does those things as well?
So prior to this, a couple of verses before it's 25, it says, if you ask them who created the heavens and the earth, they will say God. Say praise be to God, yet most of them do not know. So these are the people who do believe in God. They say, listen, we do believe there's a God, but also there's this Jesus guy. He's also running the show. No, we do believe in Allah, but also these imams and prophets, they have a hand in running the world. They believe this nonsense. And the idea is, we just keep hammering it to them. Listen, Jesus, Moses, Muhammad, these guys, they don't run anything. They could not control their own lives. It was all controlled by God. The universe, everything is controlled by God, not by these humans or these idols that you set up that's why you have to come back to God. So it's not so much so saying, hey, come to our God. We're saying that leave the idols. Because look at the verse. It says, while any idols they set up beside him is falsehood. So they usually do. They say, listen, I believe in God, but I want to keep these idols on the side. And in many cases, they'll tell you, listen, sure, maybe Jesus is not running the world, but he's still God. How so? How is that possible? They say Jesus died for 3 days. If he died, then who was running the world? Not Jesus. So, I think that's the idea.
So you're saying that this proof is specifically for people who believe in God plus idols, not just someone who believes in an idol, like a pagan.
That's my understanding, because it's already, it says on the verses before, they do believe in God. They say, listen, if you ask them look, 25, who created the heavens and the earth? They will say God. Say praise be to God, yet most of them do not know. And that most of them do not know is the part they set these idols beside God. Like, ask a Christian, who's running the world? They'll say God is running the world. Ask a Muslim, who's running the world? Say God is running the world. Then they have these smaller idols they set up besides them. We're just telling them, listen.
Can I offer?
Yes, you can offer.
Can I offer an alternative? So check this out. If someone plays the Me Too game, because let's just say it's some atheist who just wants to play the Me Too game, just to say like, yeah, well, I have a God too, and like I'm not complaining or whatever. So, or maybe there's just an idol. The guy just wants to say like, yeah, my idol's the one who does these things because they idolize them, right? So if they say like they play the Me Too game, like, yeah, my idol does that too, my idol can do that too. If you describe God and all his qualities, and then they say, my God is like that too, then I mean, one of two things. Either, hey, then your God and my God are the same, But if there's any deviation, like, yeah, my God has all those qualities, but he says you gotta I don't know, sacrifice your firstborn son. Everyone has to sacrifice their firstborn son. Well, guess what? Then your God, you said my God is the most just. Well, guess what? Your God is not the most just if he advocates to kill like your firstborn son. You know what I mean?
Brother Ilham, may I?
By acknowledging that, like, sorry, if you just let me finish. So the only way to like win the Me Too game is like, hey, you essentially end up on all the same qualities, and we do that with the Christians sometimes, right? We're just like, is God most gracious? Is he most merciful? Is he the first and the last? Is he eternal? Is he always aware? They'll say yes, 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 yes. Okay, then our God is the same, and Jesus doesn't have a lot of these qualities, So go ahead, homie.
Yes, it's profound what you asked. Very profound. And the reason why I think those two verses captured you, because these were the two verses that captured me. And
excuse me to interrupt, brother homie. If you don't mind, make it short because we want to allow other people to speak.
Sure.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. Okay, 31:29. Do you not realize that God merges the night into the day, and the day into the night, that he has committed the sun and the moon in your service? Firstly is the creation, sets the sun and the moon in your service. How does the sun and the moon go to our service? Everything we get comes from the sun, radiation of the sun. But it's just the plants. They take that energy, right? They change the carbon dioxide into carbon, give us the fruit and cellulose and the tree and the wood and the carbon, the oxygen, give us the oxygen. And the moon keeps the tilt of the earth at 23.5 degrees so we can have seasons. It's the matter of creation. He says, I have created this. Does anyone do that? The second part of this is to do why everything. Because basically what God says to the heavens when he created human, he says, you'll fall prostrate. You got to service him. Groups of angels come and protect us, take shifts to protect us. Even in the Bible, in the book of Psalm 91 and 88, God says, they're behind you and before you to protect you. So they come here to serve us. The sun and the moon serve us. And why? When you look at every other animal on this earth, everything has a purpose. The virus, the HIV virus, the coronavirus, they get inside the cell and they sit there. They've got a strategy to get another person infected before they kill you. Everything has a strategy. Everything has a purpose. The cow, everything else constructs this earth to serve humanity. So what is our purpose? If you just sit there and ask yourself, what is my purpose? What do I give to this earth? Nothing. We're basically consuming everything. And that's exactly what God says in here. In your service. The point is our redemption. And it goes back to the construct of creation. That's where the proofs come. When you look at it in detail, we have no purpose other than redeeming our soul on this earth. And he's committed everything to that. Everything serves humanity. Who created that? Jesus?
Thank you. That's a good
brother,
point. Thank you, brother.
God bless you. Just for everybody, if we can try and keep the comments 2 to 3 minutes, this just allows room for other people to, chime in, jump in, reflect, and if we can also try and make it about the verses that we read, that'd be fantastic. We're doing a deep dive on the verses. Any other comments, questions, observations on? So we read, for anybody who came in later, we read chapter 31, verses 21 all the way to 34. I'm driving. If somebody who's on the computer could repost them.
What are the verses again?
31, verse 21 to 34. Speaking of driving and being like, speaking of driving, and also I wanted to relate this to, I guess, verses 31 and 32, that, the ships roam the sea carrying, this is, I wanted to make this earlier, but the riding prayer, right? God tells you to do the riding prayer when you're on a ship or on livestock or animals that you ride, and for you to say, basically, oh man, I don't know why I'm blanking. But glory be to the one who said, do this for us. We could not have controlled them by ourselves. We ultimately return to our Lord. Right? Because the whole thing was that, like, God said, do the animal for you, and you're able to utilize it as a tool, as a function. But then what about the ship, right? You're on the ship. With the winds could get violent. The ocean could get violent, whirlpools, etc., waves, and whatnot. So, I mean, nowadays, modern day, I think it's, for us, the vehicles, a lot of things can happen on the road. Your car could break down, your axle could fly off, you could get rear-ended, God forbid, into an accident, or, not pay attention, or have a medical episode, God forbid, and then
God allowed us to subdue the explosion that's happening in that engine bay a bunch of times a second, which is amazing. Like, praise God.
Peace, I have a question.
Good question.
Um, 1 second, I got an echo. Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Praise God. The verse where it says, you know, if we turned all the trees into pens and used all the oceans into as ink with, you know, augmented by 7 more, the words of God would not run out. So is it saying that if I tried to write the Quran out with all the ink in the world, I would never get finished? Or is it saying that, like, I'm trying to understand exactly how what is the analogy being drawn here? I'm not fully understanding it.
My understanding is this is a response to the people who say, listen, this thing is not in the Quran because the Quran is not meant to cover that. Quran is just, you know, just all the basic details, but the in-depth analysis of the religion, we have to go to Hadith or some other source for that matter. And my response is, listen, God could run out of words. Like, God does not run out of words, and he does not have a lack of words. So if he wanted to, he could have made this book 500 times as long as it is, but he deemed it only to be this much because that's enough for us. God does, for example, God doesn't need to tell us. Some people bring up this argument: where does it say in the Quran insurance is prohibited? I've heard this argument literally. As if insurance in of itself is not really a modern concept. It is, but again, it clearly falls under gambling because you have a reward system against the risk that you're taking. So God doesn't need to tell you insurance is prohibited. God does not need to tell you cocaine is prohibited because both of those things, he's already covered them by prohibiting intoxicants and gambling. And no matter how much we go into the future, you know, we have AI and all this technology, the Quran is still enough for us. This is another argument some people use. Listen, Quran is 1400 years old, so we need to come up with new. We need to have scholars to give us prohibitions based on this era. We say no. Again, Quran covers everything. When it says gambling, when it says intoxicants, it includes everything, even the things we have not invented yet. And they may come in the future. They may come in the future. So that's my understanding of the verse. What do you guys think?
No, I mean, I agree. I agree with you. I just don't like. I'm trying to understand. Like, why does having a bunch of pens and a lot of ink indicate that God's words would not run out? That's my confusion. Like, I agree with everything you said, and I can understand. You know, I get the feeling that this verse is conveying what you're saying. I'm just trying to understand how the imagery of turning all the wood into pens and using all the oceans as ink translate to like the words of God would not run out.
Yeah, brother Triple, that's also a very good verse that you got. I think it was beyond that. If you start looking at what God is saying, the verses we read, and just the verses when the ships in 31 that Elham suggested, do you not see that the ships roam the earth? Well, God says, you know, what did Moses say? Moses said to God, I'm going to see you. He says, bro, you can't see me. And then Moses falls unconscious and God revives him. And he says, okay, well, I forgive me for I asked you something I didn't know. But God says that do not question me, question you. It's not a statement of arrogance. It's just that we don't understand. So ships roam the earth, right? Archimedes' law, the displacement of water and air. So your ship floats because there is more air in it. So it floats. There's laws of physics in that. And these laws of physics in fluid applies everywhere in the universe. Right? When he says, I set the sun and the moon. How's the moon? Well, God can explain that. We wouldn't have understood it. We still don't understand it because we still don't understand the gravitational field. That there is a gravitational field of the moon that holds the Earth's axis at 23.5 degrees. Right? A magnet, it's like a magnet. I mean, it's magic. When you think about it, it doesn't matter how much we know about magnetism. I mean, I see a magnet stick to a metal, I just freak out. I mean, what is that? Right? And God says it out. He says, your provisions will come. We send down provisions to you. The sun's radiation. It's only we begin to understand. When he says, God says, I send down the iron. As far as everyone knows, we mine the iron from the earth, but he sends down the iron. How? Because the stars cook the iron within them. So if God wanted to explain everything to you, right, basically that 7 oceans wouldn't be enough. Also, the analogy you said, the imagery, the analogy about the pen, God's first commandment to humanity is read, for your Lord Creator teaches you by the means of the pen. This is the kind of analogy that God's using. And this is the kind of science and understanding that God gives us along the way. But to understand exactly what he's done, that 7 ocean is not enough. 1 billion oceans wouldn't be enough.
So what he's saying is he's saying that if I were to try to extract all the information in the Quran, and then even if I converted all the trees into pens and used all the oceans as ink, I would still not have enough to cover all the information within the book. Is that what it's saying?
That's one aspect of that, because the book is a handbook, is basically a guide and a recipe for us to use our lives. This is a handbook that God has summarized with proofs, so we can get advantage of the gift that he's given us. Right? It's just like when you buy something, you got to read its instruction book. It's an instruction book. But within that instruction book, as Brother Ilham is asking, what is the proof? How do I know that someone else couldn't do that, or someone else can say that? Within that, behind that, this is a structure of existence that if you wanted to go to that detail, and you would find out. As I said, it's like 300 years. Archimedes, we found out exactly how a ship floats underwater. So there is, although we get the book of the Quran, what is written in the Quran is written for us. It's contained what it is that needs to contain. But the structures that led to the Quran, right? Basically paper came from the sun, cellulose. But understanding all of that behind that, to what underlies the creation of us and how we are as, we are basically molecules. The memories and the stuff that don't carry on the molecules and on the atoms. Every year changes in every single one of us, but we remain constant. Right? And God says, well, I'll recreate your bodies again. These atoms here, I give it to you. But this pattern remains. How is that pattern? Right?
Time out, brother homie. It's time for other people to chip in.
Sure.
Yeah, please, thank you. Anybody else wants to chip in? I have something to say. A suggestion is God uses the sea as an ink and the trees as a pen. And I don't know if I'm correct, but where does the ink come from? I know that the ink come from the sea, right? Is where the source of the ink and the pencil, and also they come from the trees.
I don't know if the sea is used as ink, but I believe he's trying to use it as an analogy, right? So even if you had this much ink and all these pens, the words of God would still not run out.
It's a
Right?
common
I
sense,
always
because
thought
he
it
knows
was an
everything.
irony
Yeah.
because, God's word is used to create everything. So if you account for everything, those are God's words, right?
I always thought it was kind of like a, of course, God's words would never run out because it's the entirety of creation.
Right, but I agree. But I think the metaphor though is trying to be used as an argument for why the Quran is all we need. So like something about the Quran, what it gives us, is compared to having all that ink and all those pens, that the
Nothing is
Quran's
needed
words would,
more.
yeah, nothing's needed more. The Quran's words would still not run out. Like the ink would run out before the Quran's words would run out. Like this is the idea, and I'm just trying to understand how this analogy is supposed to function. Is it like the information that we extract from this holy book, that if we were to try to gather all the information contained within this book and lay it out across pages with with ink and pens, would we run out of
It wouldn't be
pens?
needed, right? Like this is there's even if you had all the abundance of all the pen and all the ink, like it's not like God was in a rush to create the Quran, right? Exactly what's in it is needed. It's not like it's short. You know what I mean? That's how I see it. I don't know. God knows best.
Let me see. Sister
Me,
Lisa, good.
I was just gonna say, I think it's like when you have people say like, oh well, why didn't God then say this, or you have to know that, and this is a major reason a lot of the Sunnis say that you have to take the Hadith because you need further explanation of like, who is that uncle of the prophet, right? The guy at the end, or why isn't Adam's name in the Quran, or why didn't God mention women's menstruation, or these kinds of things that you have to go to Hadith for it. And I think God is just showing that if I didn't put it in here, then it's not a law, it's not a rule, and it's unimportant for your salvation. So don't focus on it. Kind of like when he talks about the difference between the clear verses and the allegorical verses, and those with sickness in their heart will focus on the allegorical verses. Same thing. People with sickness in their heart will believe that God didn't mention something, and so we have to go outside the book to find the information. I think it's very tied together with those two concepts are tied together. Praise God.
I want to keep going on the seven oceans and the pens topic right now, but let's do our announcements first, because there are people that want me to give out a couple announcements, and I don't want to forget, and because I forgot last week. God forgive me. So the first announcement, there is I don't think he's here, but Brother Khidr, he is here. Brother Khidr has a family contact or a family friend whose father is being hospitalized, and the burden of his treatment is on his daughter. And we're going to collect, God willing, some money, some sadaqah for her. God willing, she has to pay for his her father's daily maintenance in the hospital, and her wage is not, she's not Steve Jobs or anything. She's not wealthy like a rich person, right? But that doesn't matter because God possesses all the treasures, and God willing, we'll be able to earn credit through her. So I'm putting the announcement right now in the announcements page.
Peace. God bless you, first and foremost. And I want to just correct you. It's actually her husband, not her father.
Okay, well, I gotta make sure that the announcement says husband and not father. Give me a second. Let me see. Whose husband? All right. God bless you, brother. Sorry about that. Uh, and I'll put it in the chat. I do have a second announcement, but I want to post this first. If anyone else has any announcements, they can go now. All right. Since there's no other announcements, then I'll go along with my second announcement. Brother James has released a new musical video. He made it himself. God bless him. I believe it's to support the oppressed in Palestine. Brother James, are you here? Would you like to comment on it? Actually, I think he may have left just now. Let me see. Well, I'm definitely going to be putting the link for him. So please, guys, listen to it. He's worked hard on it. Like it, subscribe it, share with others. It's about God and about those who are being oppressed. So it's good to support our brother who's all trying to support God. And so may we all get credit in this way. And I'll try to share it on one of my TikTok videos, God willing, as well. Let me forward the announcement I just posted. If we have no more announcements, we can return back to the Quran study.
Peace. I do have an announcement to make.
Go for it. Yes, that's right. You reminded me of that. I forgot. God bless you.
God bless. Peace be upon you, everyone. Regarding this announcement is regarding the website of Wiki Submission. We have launched a new version where we remade the website and added some new features, and also a blog section. I did directly ask some people if they wish to write blogs, and they gave me their consent. Some accepted, some didn't. So I'm asking this like for everyone. Anyone who wishes to like strive, like write articles, be it whatever it is, like be it like a Friday sermon, something interesting, like wisdom they want to share, anything, just like please contact us, like either in contact at wikisubmission.org or on Discord, tag developer. And the and yeah, I guess this is pretty much it. Announcing like the website itself, as well as the chance for whomever wishes for them to write blogs. Thank you.
Praise be to God, brother. Can you share? Did you share the link to the website?
Yes. So I did share it in.
VC1. Okay, I see. Wikisubmission.org. Praise God.
God bless.
By the way, I believe there was a presentation on the other on another server where they revealed a recent website project where they're analyzing the various qira'at and showcasing that Code 19 exists in all of them. I don't know if anyone here has any more details on that presentation, but if anyone's interested in that, please contact me and I'll get you in touch with them, God willing. But so there are people that are working on showcasing Code 19 is existent throughout every qira'at. I mean, it's obvious for us submitters because we know after studying Code 19 that there's no way it's not in every qira'at, but to go through the trouble of demonstrating this through the proofs and the work, honestly, I couldn't imagine anyone would do that until until AI showed up, because AI really makes the process of gathering all that information and analyzing it a lot
Contains
more.
the last two verses of chapter 9. How would that really fit?
No, it's so again, those last two verses are false no matter which qira'at you go to. All right, but the point that I'm saying is that the people whine, hey, the qira'ats are different, thus Code 19 only works in one qira'at. This is false. You can showcase that the Code 19 is true in all of them. All right, the problem is no one wants to go through the trouble.
With the consideration, the last two verses are not included, right?
Even if you include the last two verses, you still show Code 19 is still provable in the Quran. Code 19's truth, the truth of Code 19 is there whether you add one false verse or not. Adding one false verse does not nullify Code 19. You get still thousands of proofs of Code 19.
Yeah,
Right? Even if
but
you add one verse.
when it comes to this, and it doesn't, and it proves that it's not working when you have the verses. People say, "Oh, so now you remove the verses because it doesn't fit your agenda."
No, I mean this is the voices of people who are ignorant. People who
Yeah.
choose to be ignorant. So like we can't help people who are ignorant. Right? Those who choose to remain blind, only God can help them. We can't do anything. right? Now, so, but the project that I'm speaking of though is the fact that the different qira'at, whether you take out those two verses or not, all have differences between them, right? And so they say, oh, code 19 only works for Hafs. That's not true. It works in all of them. You can find code 19 in each version, but this showcases that that there's those other versions are less perfect than Hafs. And Hafs itself on its own, the Hafs that we know today, also has things that are incorrect about it, right? But the whole point of the project is to demonstrate that it's not just Hafs that has code 19. All the Qur'an have code 19 in it. And even though this is a truth that we understood, many of us were not really interested in going through the gathering of evidence to prove it, kind of thing, right? Anyways, anyone who's interested in that information, please DM me. I'll get you into contact with the people who are leading that project, God willing.
Back to Khader's fundraising. You didn't say how people can actually send the
DM me.
money.
I said DM me. I'll post the. I don't like to post my.
No, I mean you just tell them which way. Like, is it like through a bank transfer, wire, Venmo, whatever? And how is the money
I'm
can be
collecting through
transferred?
all. I'm collecting through all the methods. I gather the money
Mm.
and then I send the money to Khader, God willing.
Khader, don't forget me.
Wait, what are you taking money from Khader? Is this? All right. God bless you guys. All right. All right. So I'm going to continue with the Quran study. All right. Let's go back to the. But first off, no one else had any other announcements.
Brother, I have a question. The money that is raised, does it go for, what is the purpose of the money? I mean, I
So
did hear that.
she has a lot of hospital bills for her husband, and a daily upkeep of each day she has to pay $30 just to keep him alive, from my understanding. $30, right? And I think it was more than 1,000. I forget the exact details, but she spent more than 1,000 or so, and her wage already was, I would say below middle class. Low, she's we were struggling before the hospital bills.
Is this in US or is it outside US?
Egypt. Right, but I do gather the money. I'll get the money to Khader somehow, God willing. So this is not the first time we've had a case outside of the U.S. for charity. And Brother Khader, he came to me with the proposal, and I said, you know what, maybe this is God. He wants us to help this woman out. All right, so whatever we've raised, we'll send there. God willing, it'll help with her burden. You can keep. By the way, if you have more questions, please DM me. I'm not hiding anything. If you want more details, I'll give you more details. God willing. Uh, I don't mean to make it uncomfortable or sad. This is not sad. This is good news because it's a chance for us to strive for God. Praise God. All right. I guess we'll go back to the Quran study. So I want to just understand when God says that even if we take all the trees, make them into pens, and use all the oceans as ink, why? Like, can't I make a bunch of Qurans with that? Why does it say the words of God will not run out? Can't I make a bunch of Qurans with that? Here, I just made 100 Qurans. I ran out of God's words.
Yes,
Please.
I do have. Oh, okay, so I guess uh, I would like to give to answer this with a perspective. Uh, okay, I see us like human beings, like our equivalent of like a pen. Like see when we do, like when we move, when we think, it's just like through one singular thing, which is our own consciousness, and it shows in everything about us, like the way we move, the way we talk, like anything we do actively is through that action of pen, and it is written within our own self. That's our That's our nafs. That's the I'm not sure if I would call it nafs or soul, but the answer, like the paper, would be the result of our lives. So basically, in our entire life, our life is like the that of the example of a pen writing on a paper, and that paper is going to be the result and will be judged by that. Maybe God is saying that, well, he wrote everything in the heavens and the earth. And when we say like the words of God don't end, remember that God is Jesus and Adam, they are words from God. Like the God's told them be, and they are. So it's not just words as in the Quran, but words as in like creation itself. And like, for example, when it comes to programming, when it comes to making a game, we're making a game using words, like actual literal words. And God, perhaps like the creation of this universe is in an analogous manner. And we can see a hint to that where again, God uses the word be and it is, and says like Jesus is a word from him. And we can extend this to like the entire universe, to everything we know, everything we don't know, how all of that is well written by God.
May I add to this if and nobody else wants to say anything?
Please.
Of course.
Are you done, Brother Hisham?
Yes.
Okay. So I sense from the verse that God is telling us that if I want, I would have given you more words in the Quran or commandments or clarification if he wanted. But not finding everything in the Quran could be as his plan. He didn't want to give it to us. It's his. This is the way he chose not to give us everything, and that's part of the test. And I think this is what I get from the verse is like, oh, God could have told me how to pray in the Quran, but he chose not to. And this is probably part of the plan and it's part of the test. So it is his choice not to give us all this information and keep it hidden for a purpose in this life.
Brother Ismail, you have a hot mic, I think. I guess he wants to be server muted. There. Forcefully muted. So I want you guys to understand the subtitle for that verse. If you look at it, it says as a subtitle, these are all the words we need. Right? So it's not talking about, oh, hey, all of creation, or, oh, hey, Jesus was the word of God, Adam was the word of God. It's talking that the Quran is all the words that we need. Right? The word, like when it says the words of God, it's referring to specifically about this book. These are all the words that we need, and that they won't run out even if we convert all the trees into pens and all the oceans into ink. That somehow these words will still not run out. And I'm trying to understand, why does God say that? Like, how is this one book, this Quran, 6,346 verses, right? Why do I not run out of these words? Or why would these words outlast all that ink?
I don't see it like that though. Right? Like how I see it is God has all the words and he only needs this much. Right? Like so you don't need the hadith, you don't need anything else. Like it's not like there was a brevity problem, right? Like it is part of the test, as your mom pointed out. Like anything that needs to be revealed is revealed. Everything else is irrelevant, right? So like if you were looking for more, God would have gave more if it was needed. But out of all the words that God has, like he doesn't run out of words, right? He only gave a select few for the Quran. That's how I see it. I don't know. Like I don't see it as the Quran is the summarization of all these words, right?
I kind of seen it the same way, but like originally when I understood it was, when you're trying to deny something, you can come up with like, usually when someone's like usually there's like a lot of denial over a concept. You'll try to come up with like 8,000 essays to try to prove the point, but then just like a single sentence from God will just be like, you can't overcome that one single sentence. Which is often a verse that has like 5 words, and no matter how many words you try to throw to overcome those few words, like you just can't do it. So I kind of inclined to see it similarly how Justin sees it, where it's just the futility of throwing, except like no volume of words is ever going to overcome just singular words from God.
There is another verse that says, chapter 18, verse 109, the subtitle, the Quran, everything we need. Say, if the oceans were ink for the words of my Lord, the ocean would run out before the words of my Lord run out, even if we double the ink supply. Right? So, like, it just, I'm trying to get, like, like, he's saying if we're using that ink specifically to write out the Quran, all the ocean, we'd run out of the oceans before we'd reach the end of the book.
Yeah, but you're inserting that interpretation, right?
It says if
God's
it,
word. Go ahead.
it says if the ocean were ink for the words of my Lord, if the ocean were ink for the words of my Lord, the ocean would run out. So the words of my Lord, that would be the Quran, right? Subtitle says the Quran, everything in that we need. So the words of my Lord would be Quran, correct?
No, I think it's all the words of God beyond the Quran.
But the subtitle is specifically talking about the Quran, everything we need.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah, but
the verse entails, right? Because if God had all the words, they wouldn't run out. So the Quran is all we need, right?
So it says,
to give, can I tell you why? Because like you're forgetting the rationale behind why people go outside of the Quran. People ask why don't you believe in the Hadith? We need the Hadith to understand the Quran. It's like no. God was not in a rush to explain the Quran. Like, oh, we only have a limited amount of time. Put this out in the printing press. I wish I would have had more time to have more words to throw in the Quran. No, right? Like the rationale behind looking outside of the Quran for rules and guidance is because the Quran is not complete. It's not fully detailed, right? So God gives it. Listen, I have all the words. If all the oceans were ink and all the trees were pens, I wouldn't run out of words. Which means the amount of words you have are exactly what's needed. It's not like there was a time frame, like a restriction of words that God could use. He has all the beautiful words. What you have is enough.
no, but why would the ink run out? Why would the ink run out? We have so right now the number of words we have from God are limited, right? We have 6,346 verses and a limited number of words within these verses. Right? So these are the words of God that he has given us.
It's
right? So
not
why
referring to the Quran. It's referring to all the words of God. And because the words of God don't run out, the Quran doesn't need all the words of God for us. Like, we don't need all those words for salvation.
So wait, we do, like, here we all agree that there were more words of God that were outside the Quran, correct? Like we have Torah, we have gospel, right?
We also have the universe and every atom and where it's located
Sure.
and everything.
Right. So if I'm going to say, hey, look, I have more words from God outside the Quran, let's go grab those words too, right? That would not be the lesson we're supposed to be taking from this verse. Right? The lesson from this verse is trying to tell us that this book is all we need. I don't like that. Like, we have other books from God. I don't need to go get those books, right? So if we're trying to argue from the perspective of this verse that the Quran is all we need, then when it's talking about the words of God, it's referring specifically to the subset of words God has for us in this book.
Look,
Brother
imagine
Freaking
I write like a massive book, like a 1,000-page book, right? And I tell you, look, even this book is not everything that I could say. So like, I'm thinking this book is enough. Like, I have determined that this book is enough. I could say more, but this book is enough, right? So like, the Quran's only, God could say more, but the Quran's enough. It's very limited, but it's enough. I think the Quran is even smaller than the Torah. You know what I mean?
I actually don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if it's smaller than the Torah. Like, I'm not really one way or the other. it was just like the lesson that this verse is trying to portray. It's talking specifically more about the Quran. It's trying to make a point regarding this final testament, right? Because this is the yeah. Go ahead. What do you want to say, homie? Go ahead.
The Quran is smaller than
Yeah,
both the Torah and the Gospel.
yeah. I just wanted to say
In
that
terms of pure verses.
Go ahead, homie.
to complete what you're saying on chapter 18, that's not the only place that God mentions that. 31:27, take refuge in God from Satan rejected. If all the trees in 31:27, if all the trees on earth were made into pens, and the ocean supplied the ink, augmented by 7 more oceans, the words of God would not run out. And 31 is Lorman, is the human encounter with God's words. Right? In that one, the Messenger of the Covenant gave that subtitle that God's word is you won't run out, you won't understand. But this Quran is what you need, that God designed those words to match it. But 31:27, right? God says, the ocean supplied the ink augmented by 7 more oceans, takes it out of the subheading understanding. It puts it beyond our grasp. It goes to every coded particle in the universe. It goes to construction of the heaven where God is now. Right? 7 more oceans, I think it's an indication as to exactly what God is talking, and that is exquisitely and specifically refers to God's knowledge. And that's how he separates it from human knowledge of the verse and what he's given us. At least that's what I think.
Do we have any more comments on the subject? All right. Ismail says 7 oceans, 7 earths. Yeah, that is a cool thing. That God made 6 other earths like this earth, and we have 7 oceans. What are the 7 oceans, by the way? Do we have like 7 official oceans, or is this just something we say, or is that something that God says? Is it like Indiana Ocean, Pacific Ocean? Yeah, let's just
I
get a
think
list.
it's not just the ocean. I think all the seas.
Oh, there's a lot of seas. There's more than 7. I think we'll go beyond 7 if we include
So
every
is it
single.
specifically ocean?
Well, I mean, it lists 7 oceans, which is very interesting. Why does it list 7 oceans?
Because in the Quran, in the Arabic, the word is sea, but the translation, Rashad translated as oceans.
Oh, interesting. Ishmael has another theory. He says that all the oceans are
So
connected.
there's
Again.
so yeah, all the oceans are connected, but like nautically, you've got the North Pacific, the South Pacific, you have the North Atlantic, the South Atlantic, you have the Indian, you have the Arctic.
So 6 oceans. But so
And
he's
then
saying that there's 7.
and then you have then you have the southern, which is the Antarctic. So those are 7. Sorry.
Well, so he says that since there's 7 Earths, and each Earth has 1 ocean. Oh, I thought that's interesting. Augmented by 7 oceans.
That's a good. Yeah,
That's an
another
interesting
good.
theory. Right.
Well,
Good job.
Yeah.
Brother Triple A, there is 7 oceans: Arctic, North Atlantic, Southern Indian, North Pacific, South Pacific, and Southern.
So
Right?
no disputes that there are these 7. There's no disputes. There's no like, oh, actually, this is 2 oceans, or this is not.
There is actually, it's like, I think the most common view I see out there is like there is 5, like those like where is it? Like the North and South Atlantic, and then North and South Pacific are like counted as like one. So technically, because I did see some answers saying 7, but most of the ones I see say 5, and it is subjective. But with
And
Wikipedia says
but
5.
look, that verse seems to indicate we have one big ocean, right? And we add 7 more on top of it.
Yeah, maybe. I hear McLincoln's argument may be strongest. Is there a verse that says 7 oceans? Let me see. Other than that one, 7 oceans. No, that's the only one. Okay. So I mean, it's still pretty cool that we have some sort of superficial division of 7 oceans. But there's 7 Earths. If each Earth has an ocean, that would be 7 oceans. But technically, it'd be 8 total, right? This ocean plus 7 more. Anyways.
You know, there is a
So I
question
have a question.
I have about this. So I put a verse in the chat where it says, "Oh, the heaven but we create above you 7 universes in layers." We can just pause there. You know, in layers, it makes it sound like dimensions. Like when you think of dimensions, you think of like layers of reality, right? Like it's kind of weird that it says in layers. So it makes me wonder if each universe is its own different dimension, right? Now about the 7 Earths, do you think they're all in our layer? Because our layer is the only one that has stars, and I think Earth needs a star, right?
Yeah, I do believe it's only this layer. The reason I think it's only this layer is because they're going to be shown to the people who sort of disbelieved in like they disbelieved in that life needed God to come into existence, and so such people I would assume are going to be stuck in eighth in the eighth in hell. So I don't think they'd be able to go to the other dimensions to see it. So for me, I think this would mean that they'd have to those 6 other Earths have to be in this dimension for them to look at it. That's
So
my theory, though.
maybe each dimension is less real than the other one, right? So like we're currently in the least real dimension, and like that's why it's furthest away from God. It's the most virtual one, right?
Yeah, I'm a fan of the idea that the closer we get to God, the more concrete it becomes. But I mean, like it's a hard thing to prove. It's just all theoretical. Like I'm a fan of what you're saying. I don't know how I would go about proving it.
Can I just add something to McClingan? The only one who actually, the only idea of humanity, because I think the quantum mechanics, or the string theory, actually describes what you're describing. It says the strings are in single dimension, and that's the word they use, single dimension. So when God says in layers, if we understand what God is saying, and I'm sure to my grave that we cannot comprehend what God is saying with respect to the other 7 universes. But if string theory is anything to go about, yeah, it's a different dimension. And the multiverse theory is that each string, right, is that in that dimension, when the strings collide, you have an immense surge of energy that creates like a big bang that created this universe. So if they are, and then you look at that idea further, what you find that everything has a quantum signature in relation to the string where they're in. And that describes the frequency differences to whether it's object, whether it's biology. I mean, our molecules are no different to the rock or the ocean or anything else. It's this thing that overlays it, separates all of that. But in multiverse theory, yeah, it is layers at different dimensions. We would not have access to it because we won't have access to a different, basically, quantum dimension. when God says that about the jinns and Satan, they see you, but you don't see them. That's a different quantum signature. They're exactly in the same space that we are in. But the reason why we can't see them, because our senses don't operate at that quantum level, at that quantum signature. And everything else you look at, and you know very well that you know what we see is just basically light hitting your retina, and that retina produces a pulse in your optic nerves. And then the brain interprets that pulse as to what it is. Is it the face or is it the sun? So everything's basically has that quantum signature for us to understand it. The jinns are in a different dimension, but a different quantum signature. And in regards to the layers, the only way that I can understand, the closest come to that, is by string theory.
Just a question on that. So how can you assert that with such confidence? Like, do you have a verse?
Sorry, the universe. No, I'm only quoting Hawking's. I'm quoting
Hawking's
people
talked
who,
about gems being in different dimensions.
No. I'm just saying is my understanding as to when God says they see you, but you don't see them. But however, they whisper.
So you're
to
not
you.
confident on it, just to clarify.
I don't know. It's a matter of confidence, it's a matter of understanding, and it doesn't have to be exactly what I'm saying. I mean, I'm just saying that they whisper to you, right? Their societies like us, they get messengers. God sends them to listen to Muhammad, listen to the Quran, and they whisper to us. I've got a jinn companion, right? But how is it the case that I don't see them? I'm just saying that when you start looking at the way quantum mechanics is describing, as everything has a quantum signature, and that is a totally different dimension, even though they exist parallel. And going to McLincoln idea of being layers, and these layers is also described in string theory. That was the link I was saying. But look, it's my understanding. It doesn't mean that it's true. I can only be confident in what I understand.
Yeah, Justin, I think he was just proposing it, like like an explanation for why we can't see them, but they can see us and interact with us is perhaps they're in a different dimension. You know what I mean? Like, we're not saying it's true. We're just
Yeah. Well, believe it or not, I actually proposed this even in the last server, and then Naveed was like, "I don't even understand what you're saying." I'm like, fair. But fair enough. Yeah. It does make sense. 100%. I agree with what you guys are saying. But yeah, God knows best.
So are we in the open portion of the Quran study now? We should be, no?
Yes.
Does anybody have any topics they want to bring up? Stuff you've been thinking about, verses you read that you have questions about, or want to bounce ideas, things of this nature?
Yeah, can I come up with a question and open to everyone? It's chapter 7. When God says 7, I read from 738, so we get the idea. He will say, enter with previous communities of jinns and humans into hell. Every time a group enters, they will curse the ancestral group. Once they are all in it, the latest one will say of the previous one, our Lord, these are the ones who misled us. Give them double the retribution of hell. He will say, each receives double, but you do not know. 39 says, the ancestral group will say to the later group, since you had an advantage over us, taste the retribution of your own sins. And 40, surely those who reject our revelations and are too arrogant to uphold them, the gates of the sky will never open for them, nor will they enter paradise until the camel passes through needle's eye, and thus required the guilty. Now, 740, when God says, these people who end up in hell, the gates of the sky will never open. Does it mean that the earth, the barren earth, would then become hell?
I'm not really fresh, but I do. Peace be upon you, by the way, homie. Peace be upon you, everyone.
Peace be upon you.
I think I think it's like mentioned in one of the appendices where like a new like eighth universe will be created, and that will be hell. And the idea of like sky will not open for them. Well, I guess I forgot where this was, where I read this, but there how like these universes are one inside of the other, where like the eighth one is like the smallest innermost one, and like the bigger you the farther you go, like the bigger you are. So the farther, okay, so the more you go up, the higher the universe you are in, so and the bigger that universe itself is. So the eighth universe would be like the smallest. The seventh universe, which is our universe, is bigger than that, and then goes on and on and on. And that's why I guess there are some mentions of that will let us reach this conclusion. And like one of them is like what you just read, how the gates of the sky will never open for them. It's a lateral movement. There is another one about the jinn trying to like يسترقون السمع. They try to listen to whispers from the highest society, implying it's up. And yeah, that's my 2 cents. I guess.
I think, yeah, I think, I mean, 740, in relation to what God is saying, the gates of the sky, these are the gates that open up, and the gods, his angels come, right? The heavens will break. And that reference that the sky, when everyone leaves, those gates would be closed forever. So there's no escape.
I mean I don't see it like that is like how do I say it? It's like a door that's closed, because there are other verses where people from heaven visit people from hell. So there
Yeah.
is some level of movement.
Can
But
I chime in?
yes, of course, please.
Yeah, I think, brother, as you said, mention it. Everybody, based on what they've done on this earthly life, elevate their soul. The larger their soul become, they can go higher. And it all depends how much work you've done on this earth. And the more you work on your soul to make it grow, then the tolerance to go higher level, it's more than people who stay bound on the earthly life and materialistic thing, and their energy level is a lot lower. And people who work on their energy and make purify themselves, and the more they grow, I think it goes higher. And I think it's only based on where you at with your expansion of your soul. Thank you.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, I'm just saying exactly the verse that God is saying. And God's very clear in what he's saying. The gates of the sky will never open for them. I understand all that. And that's the whole reason why we are practicing the practices, proper practices of submission that came through us through Messenger of the Covenant. And that's the reason to grow our souls. But it says the gates of the sky, so they be stuck. There's no movement from where they are.
So basically,
that's
there's
what-
no actual gate. It's just the amount of, I guess, that's like invisible gate probably, or invisible barrier that you don't even see. And if you can pass through it, that means your soul is elevated enough. If you don't, you can't. I mean, if you haven't worked on your soul, then you can't go there.
Look, sister, I do understand that. But then the material fact that I'm just talking about, then the earth, they be captured on earth.
It's they're not going to be in Earth because Earth is in the seventh universe right now. I think I think I forget what said it, but whatever. An eighth universe will be created. And that will be the universe that contains hell. So they're confined within hell. And if you just think about it, like the gate to the sky is just up, right? Which is like the universe. You could even say it's just that gate will never open for them. But we know that we can go visit people in hell and whatnot. And there's some verses about that in the Quran too. So I kind of go with what Sister Halo is saying. If your soul is big enough, you can go up to a limit to how big your soul is, or you can go down. But there's a limit to how much you can go up.
Yeah, Brother Ilham, I mean, that's true. But I mean, God says that the earth and the moon will crash, the whole universe will be recreated, everything will be recreated, right? So it doesn't preclude that this system would remain. I mean, why would otherwise God say that? What I'm saying is a clue as to where it is. Even that would be within that universe, the eighth dimension. That's fine. I don't have a problem with it. But it just shows the abode, the gate, the escape route. The gates of the heaven would never be open for them. So we can understand that from here, if that is the case, even within that eighth dimension that you're saying, and I don't have a problem with that, or I accept it, that's where you're going to be stuck.
Uh, awfully silent. Does anyone else has another topic to discuss? In the chat, we're talking